Met die plaaslike regeringsverkiesing om die draai, fokus ons vandag op die moontlike uitslag, verwagtinge, asook beloftes en kiesersvertroue. Ons verwelkom vir Prins Mashele, senior navorsingsgenoot in die studie van bestuur en beheer-innovasie van die Universiteit van Pretoria, om met ons oor die gewigtige onderwerp te gesels. Mr. Mashele, welcome and thank you so much for joining us for this discussion.
Good morning and thank you for inviting me.
Let's start with an overview regarding the overall political situation in South Africa in view of the forthcoming municipal elections. Your view?
Look, the political temperature in South Africa today is unsettling, if I may put it that way. There is a general sense that things are falling apart in South Africa. Since 1994, I would argue, we haven't felt as South Africans the way we do today. We feel like this because of a few things. One, the economy is in a terrible shape, and there is no inspiration on the part of our leaders. There is no indication that they understand how bad the situation is. Number two, the ruling party, the ANC, which is supposed to inspire confidence, seems to be in tatters. The collective leadership of the ANC doesn't have integrity, and therefore it doesn't inspire South Africans that we are going somewhere. Socially, I think we are drifting apart. If you listen to public discourse, you have a sense that we are actually not pulling in one direction as South Africans. So these elections take place in that kind of climate, which is why people are beginning to ask themselves questions about the possibility of change politically.
Mr. Mashele, yesterday it has been reported that the Minister of Police, Nathi Nhleko, announced that 15 people have already been killed in violence that could possibly be linked to next week's local government elections, excluding this week's data. Do you think these deaths are politically motivated?
There's no question in my mind about it. These are politically motivated deaths. And if you look at these deaths, by the way, they are in the main concentrated in KwaZulu-Natal. There have been few in the Eastern Cape. But look at the people who are killed. These are ANC councillor-elect. This can't be killings that are not associated with politics. Why only ANC councillor-elect? And the good thing is that as people talk in those communities, they actually don't accuse the DA of murdering ANC councillors or the EFF or the IFP. Actually, people think that these are killings within the party. So in other words, this is intra-party violence, so violence within the ANC. It appears to me that increasingly it is becoming very dangerous for someone to eye a position in the ANC, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal. So I think the minister must be very honest and look at these killings as political killings within his party.
Do you think that the violence or violent protests could escalate during the next week or two?
I actually don't think so. Look, if you look at the violence that we have had in South Africa in the run-up to the elections, the most turbulent has been in Tshwane. And that, again, was generated by internal happenings within the ANC. So it's not violence that comes outside the ruling party. And it has quietened down now. It appears to me that eventually the national leadership of the ANC has prevailed. Toko Didiza is the candidate, and she has been forced down the throat of the ANC supporters. So I actually don't foresee a resurgence of violence in Tshwane, for example, and I can't imagine violence elsewhere in the country. Now, there could be violence after the elections if the IEC were to rig elections, because there are people who are beginning to say this IEC can no longer be trusted. You will recall that in the 2014 elections, there was an incident in Alexandra where ballot boxes were found in the streets. There were some ANC people who were found with boxes of ballot boxes. So if there could be indications after the elections that the IEC has rigged elections, I think you should expect violence.
Okay, so some reports recently referred to a political battle also raging on lampposts. What is your opinion with regards to some of the promises being made to South African citizens by the different political parties?
Look, local government elections in the main are about service delivery, about provision of water, electricity, refuse removal, and so on. In the main, local government elections are not about job creation. And I hear a lot of parties promising manna from heaven, which I know will not happen. I mean, if you are a mayor of a small municipality somewhere, What powers do you have to create jobs? Be honest that, look, I am going to provide services, right? You hear mayors talking about improving education, but education is a national competence. It's not a local government competence. So I think that parties are promising things that actually they can't deliver. Number two, like I said earlier on, the economy is in a terrible, terrible shape. And to turn around the economy, you can't turn it around within a day. For example, we have a terrible situation in this country of a very poor quality education. Now, you can't turn around the economy in the short term if you don't improve the quality of education generally in South Africa. So, but parties are not actually talking about these things because they want us to vote for them. So I think there are unrealistic promises that are made by all parties.
And the promises or the sustainability of the promises is questionable.
Of course. I mean, take, for example, the EFF, right? And the promises they make that they are going to build 3-roomed houses for people who don't have houses. And they even define this house as a very beautiful house that are going to build should they be elected, right? The promises they make around land, right? They're going to take land from white people and give it to black people, nationalize mines and so on. These are some of the weird promises that are being made. And you know that a thing like that will never happen in South Africa.
Mr. Mashele, your view in terms of the possible outcome of the elections?
Look, the elections are predictable generally in South Africa across the land. Only in a few metros you can't predict. In fact, these elections, I would argue, are about 3 metros, about Nelson Mandela Bay, Johannesburg, and Tshwane. The rest we know that Cape Town, the DA will win. We know the rest that the ANC will win. Let's focus on the 3 that are unpredictable. Look at Nelson Mandela Bay. In 2009, the ANC got there 49% in the national elections. In 2011, it got 51.9%. And in 2014, it got 48%. So you can see that the ANC goes into these elections in Nelson Mandela Bay unsure if it will win. And that's the interesting thing about these elections, that there is an element of unpredictability. So my prediction there is that there will be a coalition government between the DA and the EFF. Because if I look at the polls conducted so far by Ipsos, for example, they suggest in that direction. If you come to Johannesburg, the picture is almost the same, although the ANC is a bit stronger in Johannesburg. But there are possibilities there for a coalition government as well between the two parties. And the same picture applies here in Tshwane. The ANC in Tshwane is more vulnerable than it is in Johannesburg. So I think what is exciting about these elections is the element of unpredictability, which we did not have in the past.
What are some of the main challenges that South Africa is facing at the moment?
Look, the main challenges that South Africa is facing currently are related to unemployment and job creation. And these challenges are well known. And I think they are related to challenges in education. If you look at people who are educated and who have jobs, I think generally they have a good time in South Africa. But you have a mass of unemployed, unemployable, uneducated black people in the townships and in the rural areas. That, I think, is the main challenge, because you cannot address the question of economic growth in a context where you don't have skilled people. In the main, I think that is what our country is facing.
And are there any possible solutions for these challenges?
Of course, there are solutions. If you had a political leadership that is focused on the job and that has a clear medium to long-term vision, I think this can be addressed. I mean, addressing, for example, challenges relating to education. You have to be very serious about making sure that, 1, you produce quality. 2, you have to sort out teacher unions. SATU, I think, is a big problem in terms of making sure that we address education as a challenge. But you only need political leadership. And unfortunately, I don't think we are seeing that from the ANC.
If we take a look at the effort being made by the different parties in terms of text messages, phone calls, etc., motivating citizens to vote, how effective are these campaigns?
Look, they are effective in the sense that all of us as South Africans, we have received a message or two from these parties. So no South African would claim that he or she does not know that elections are coming on the 3rd of August. So all of us know. The question is, do we want to go and participate? And that's our personal choice. But in terms of getting the message, I think the political parties, all of them, have done a good job.
Mr. Mashele, do you think the whole Nkandla saga would still have an effect on the outcome?
I think it will. If you look at people in Gauteng, for example, they were very disturbed by the Nkandla saga. And I think it had an impact on the outcome of the previous national elections here in Gauteng, where the ANC dropped all the way from 64% to 54%. And I think the people of Gauteng still remember that. The drop of support of the ANC in Gauteng, I think in the main, has got to do with Nkandla, e-tolls and other things. So I think that it will still have an impact.
How strong would you say is the voters' confidence at the moment?
Well, confidence in the ruling party, I would say that it's dropping. You can see that the EFF is picking up support. It shows that there are people who no longer trust the ANC. You can also see that the DA is also gaining support. So I think that the voters are beginning to explore with opposition politics.
What would your message be to the voters with a lack of confidence in a brighter future? Why should we vote?
Here is the thing about elections. As a South African, if you want to make political change, you have no instrument other than voting. So if you don't vote, you will actually have voted because those who will vote will determine your political life. So in order for you to have control of the political situation in this country, go and make your own choice and express it on a ballot box. There is just no other way. And we cannot stay at home, because a lot is at stake. If you are unemployed and you believe that there's a party that is going to create jobs for you, go and vote for it.
And do you think we could stay positive in terms of a future in South Africa?
I think so. I mean, look, we are entering a very interesting phase of South African politics where politics is no longer predictable. We are not sure of the outcome. And that means that democracy is actually becoming vibrant and the choices are widening. So gone are the days when we knew that the ANC is going to win in Tshwane or in Johannesburg. We are now entertaining the possibilities of coalition governments, for example. That's exciting, and we should be confident about the future of this country.
Nou ja, so gesels Prins Mashele, senior navorsingsgenoot in die studie van bestuur en beheer innovasie van die Universiteit van Pretoria. Mr. Mashele, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion.
It's my pleasure.